Welcome back to Vizaural, the music podcast where we go through Bandcamp rather, and go through SoundCloud and find some great songs to share with you. And I think we found some really great ones today. My name is Roland.
My name is Craig.
And how's it going, Craig?
It's going well. As of this recording, still baby free, but I don't know when we're releasing episode 3, so I again might be lying. But we're just waiting for a baby to show up and completely change everything I know about everything.
Yep, this will make no sense to anyone listening to this one, but episode 3 will come out today, and probably by the time you actually do listen to this, there will be another baby in Craig's life, at least.
Well, not another. Still just the one.
Another baby in the world. One just for you.
Yeah, exactly. My own that I get to...
teach to hate the things that you hate.
Yeah, which is just about everything that you love.
I know. It's really what parenting's all about, I find. Is how do I just put them in the direction towards liking the things I like and hating the things I hate, so that when they're a teenager, they definitely will reverse and then just hate all the things I love.
Oh man, so you got to play the long game here.
Mm-hmm. You have to know that eventually, just like I now like Donald Fagen and hated it when I was a teenager because it was what my dad liked and blah blah blah. That eventually they will likely come to liking that stuff.
Oh man, yeah. So last night, my wife and I and my mother-in-law were all playing cards, and we just had like a Spotify radio station going on with like old-timey rock stuff. I don't know what the anchor song was, but a couple of times there was some Chicago that popped in, and you know what? Chicago fucking rules.
Do they?
Like, in an unironic way. Like, you know how most like hipsters seem to love Toto and like think Africa is one of the greatest songs of all time now just because, like, I don't know, Weezer covered it. And
is that why? I feel like, I actually do like Toto. They went on tour with Yes, who I also like, unironically. I mean, at this point, we're too old to like anything ironically. But,
that's true.
Toto's not bad. I didn't realize hipsters like Toto now.
Yeah, you don't realize that Africa came back like out of nowhere and everybody loves it, even though it's a trash song.
Oh, I thought it was a great song. I thought that's why it came back.
No, I don't know. That's one of those weird things that sometimes things that are bad come back and everybody loves them, and I don't understand it. It's kind of like Return of the Mac, which is a bad song, but everybody seems to think it's one of the best rap songs of all time, and it's not. It's not good. I
would disagree on that. It was kind of like when I was listening. I have a number of middle schoolers who are in my classroom at lunch, and they're working on the school newspaper, and generally they're just like hanging out and playing music, and they are really into ABBA. And I thought, never did I think in 2018 I'd be sitting here with a bunch of 14-year-olds and they're just rocking ABBA like it is the coolest thing imaginable.
You mean you didn't realize that there's 2 giant movies about ABBA and that kind of permeated pop culture in that way, and that kids that only obtain media through pop culture would suddenly be influenced by it?
What movies have ABBA in it?
What are those? There's 2 main movies that came out with based on the musical of ABBA. I couldn't tell you the names of it. My wife went to the movies.
Huh? I have no idea.
Yeah,
I guess that explains it.
There's like a big musical too. Like I don't remember. Here We Go Again, I think is the title of the sequel.
Okay.
Clearly I know this off the top of my head. No, but yeah, there's
like
2.
Mamma Mia.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Here we go again.
I do know that.
Yeah. So that was the tagline of the second one, I guess.
Kids like Mamma Mia?
I'm assuming just because it was in pop culture and kids only obtain media through pop culture, that's where they would get it from.
Well,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess that's true. Stupid kids. Well, hopefully those stupid kids are listening to this podcast so that they can actually learn about some good music that is surely not going to be in any major motion picture. Some of these names today. This is going to be rough. So let's go ahead and get into our first song. Ardikio 2 is the artist, with a song called Moondust. It's from a record, Vegvísir. Here it is. So this is a musician from Mexico. Like I said, I'm sure I messed up the name as well as the name of the record. Really cool piece. None of the text looks Spanish to me, so I imagine they're pulling from some other some other connection to kind of their musical approach or the kind of style. What am I trying to say here, Craig? I don't know, but
I have no idea.
It's a really good song, though. It's an odd one, I think, to begin our show because it's so, very, very calm and chill. Just that kind of sound of rain and very ambient with that piano coming in. But I don't know, when I was putting this together and I was listening to these tracks on my bike this week, it was just one of the tracks that I really liked. And I kept kind of going back to this one, maybe skipping over some of the others, even though I think all the tracks this week are really strong. And I thought, I'm going to start the show with this. This is how it's going to be. So what do you think, Craig?
Interesting. I think the only pronunciation you got right was probably moon dust.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about you, but the initial synth run kind of reminded me of Fever Ray a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah.
And then I was kind of waiting for a little more to happen just because that was in my mind. And then, the sparse piano line came in that you're talking about. And overall, it kind of felt very soundtracky. Not necessarily in a bad way, but I don't think it was super engaging on its own. But I know that, obviously it would be, pretty kick-ass in some sort of placed in a movie or television series or something because it just felt like there was something missing, and I wanted either something sonically or visually to kind of come out. And obviously I'm listening to audio on Bandcamp, and there wasn't going to be any visual stuff happens unless I ate some mushrooms or dropped some acid. But to me, it just kind of felt like a placeholder for something bigger. And I didn't go to their page to see what the rest of the stuff was like, but was it similar kind of ambient noise stuff, or did it actually build to other things?
There are some that are a little harsher in their sounds, maybe not as kind of relaxing, but generally the similar vibe, I would say. And I think that's an important point to note as well, that I think music like this, it's purposeful in that it is meant to be, like you mentioned, like a film score. Obviously, there's no film, at least I don't think there's a film that goes with this, but it's something that serves another media. And so maybe when I was riding my bike, to me, it was just like, oh, this is providing me. Now I have the visuals in front of me. I'm going through the actions. This is providing me my soundtrack. Unlike, a pop song, which I think its purpose is you are going to just listen to this pop song for 3 minutes and sing along and feel like, oh, that was cool, and then turn it off, go to the next thing.
Yeah, I definitely see that. There's definitely albums that I listen to either walking or running, or especially going through the airport. I have airport music that just fits the hustle and bustle, and I could definitely see being out in the world with this in your ears would make that experience much better.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's take a look at our second track here. This is from a Scottish band called Benjamin Blue, with a song called Goldmine. Found this one, Craig, so we talked about it.
I did. Speaking of nice, tight little pop song, I just really liked it. Kind of an avant pop song, little. I love the interplay between the female and the male vocals. Kind of theatrical with the shifting tempos, even in a short little song, and it just, to me, it felt. And this isn't an insult, but it felt claustrophobic. There's just so much going on, and they packed so much in, but it didn't feel burdened down by anything. It just kind of felt like it was just everything needed to come out at once, and I just loved every second of this song. And the rest of the album also is also very, very cool and very similar to this.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, this is an excellent song. All the tracks this week are great, but this is, in fact, if anything, I probably should have just started the show with this because it's such a great 3-minute jam. And it's funny that you mentioned it sounded claustrophobic, like there's so much going on, because you had just sent me the MP3, so I'm listening to that. I have no I don't know what the band looks like or how many members are in it. And I actually had to go then to the Bandcamp page because I wanted to see, is this just a 2-piece or is this a 4-piece? Is this a 6? I just wanted to get a sense of how many people are actually putting this together. But it's a great song. I'll have to go listen to the whole record. Do you know where in Scotland they're from?
I can't remember.
I'm sure it says on their Bandcamp page.
I think someone was from there's 2 bands from Scotland this week. I can't remember which one went where.
Yeah, we can figure that out later. But since I lived in Scotland for some time, I lived in Edinburgh and just tried to get as much into that music scene as I could in the 13 months that I lived there. But I never heard a band like this, and that would have been really cool if they would have been a local act playing around.
Well, you done messed up there, kid.
Yeah. Well, they probably were like 12 years old when I was there, knowing how old I am today.
More than likely.
Let's go ahead and listen to our next song from a local band, or at least local to me, from Santa Rosa, a band called Sloth Turtle with their song Boys. This was an awesome find. Sometimes when I go onto Bandcamp, you can type in the parameters of what you're searching for. If you're looking for garage rock, psychedelic, electronic, whatever it is. And sometimes I just put in a city. I'll be like, what's happening? Who's releasing music here in Santa Rosa that might maybe not be playing shows? It might not be kind of a band per se. It's more like just a recording project. And I stumbled upon this, and this was just such an awesome find, because in addition to this being an awesome song, an awesome record, they actually are a band that plays live. And in fact, tonight I'm going to go see them. They're just a couple blocks from where I live, so I'm going to be able to walk down there and see them, as well as 4 other bands I've never heard of, but I'm sure will be pretty cool as well. This is just that super tight, math rock or kind of post rock, just obviously very talented guitar players who know how to craft a really tight jam. So what do you think, Craig?
Oh yeah, this was the type of shit that was my jam back when I was in grad school. So when you first met me, the sliding guitar runs, the machine gun snare fills, it's one of those styles that it's hard to pull off. It's hard to meld with other genres. And, a lot of times, after you listen to music so long, you there's some things you're like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if they mashed up this with that? But you can't really do that with instrumental math rock or the post rock, like you were saying, like this, because it just was, I was just so happy that it was straight ahead and they went with it. They nailed it. I loved it. And I'm kind of jealous that you're going to go see them,
Yeah. I'm hoping
out of the blue.
Yeah, I'm hoping they're really good live too, just because this is really well put together. They even have a music video on their Bandcamp page, so this is a proper band, if you will, and I'm hoping they play more around here. They might not actually live in Santa Rosa now, and I bet they're like college guys, so they probably live somewhere else at this point. But yeah, really good stuff. I highly recommend this one.
Yeah, I would say stuff like this live can go one of 2 ways. Either they're so tight it just kind of sounds like the recording, and it kind of, I don't know, there's that type of live experience where it's just not that engaging. But then there's other bands that are like this that kind of just go off and let things break down and come back together.
I'd be happy with either of those things.
Yeah.
If they could pull this off live, what it sounds like on this recording, that'd be incredible. If they have a different setup, I don't actually know how many members are in the band. I think it might just be 2 individuals, so that I would imagine it's hard to recreate.
Like it could have been. Remember the band Malachi Constant?
Mm-hmm, of course.
Their albums, super tight, kind of similar to this, very, very precise. And then when you see them live, I think it helped that they were all just hammered every single time I saw them live, but it would be like just this sloppy version of it that just worked so well with it.
This is not music you can get sloppy to. I mean, I can barely play my guitar well sober, but I can only imagine something this technical. The minute you have inebriated yourself in some way, it's not going to turn out well. But maybe they're just that good.
No, sometimes, like I said, sometimes it's great if you can pull it off. So I'm excited to hear back on how it was.
Yeah, pictures on our Instagram, which actually I also forgot at the very beginning of our show to remind you to send us emails at visceralmusic@gmail.com. We do have a Twitter that we use sometimes. If you go into Twitter and just search Vizaural Music. And, of course, we're posting videos onto YouTube. Let's go ahead and get to our next track. This is by a band called Fissa. Am I pronouncing that right?
Sure,
Fissa
why not?
with Le Doigt.
Yeah, why not?
That.
Yeah.
Je me pose des questions. Je me cherche des alibis. Mon cerveau tourne en rond. Quand je suis dans mon lit, je me pose des questions. Quel sens donner à ma vie? Mais personne me répond.
So, clearly this is a French band, and I think you also found this one, Craig, so start us off.
I did find this one. To me, it's basically like the French 07. I loved the little bossa nova beat that it had in it. The vocals were great. You know how there's sometimes where foreign vocals kind of make the song, and you're like, if they sing this in English, it would be crap. Mm-hmm. I don't think that's the case here, but I mean, obviously the French vocals work perfectly with the background beat and kind of just the instrumentation, everything like that. But I don't think it's necessarily what makes the song great. I just loved it. The whole little album is nice. They have guest singers on everything, and that's kind of why to me it's like it is the French 07.
Yeah, I didn't realize they had. This is the only song that I've heard from them. But this vocalist is not the one that's on the rest of the record, or at least not the many other songs.
Yeah, so I think this album has like 4 songs, and I believe she is on the first 2, and then if I remember correctly, there's a guy on the last 2. But I think they're all in French, and they're all really nice, kind of interesting, interesting musically and everything like that. It's a good little EP.
Yeah, I liked it as well. My only criticism, and this is going to sound really stupid, is that it sounds too French. And not because there's obviously French lyrics, but it just sounds kind of like this is what I would imagine would be a really hip thing that people would listen to in Paris and to be on in the cafe, which I have no problem with. I like that kind of stuff. I want to go sit in a cafe in Paris. That sounds awesome. But yeah, maybe it just kind of fit that mold quite well.
There's I said 07, but there's definitely an air vibe to it.
Sure.
So I think I would bet, $1.6 billion if I win the lottery, which probably, again, is a dated reference by the time you hear this, that they are, huge fans of Air and 07.
But that's probably true.
If I win, I will email them and find out, and if they don't like those bands, I will give them all my money.
Wow, that's pretty easy for them to say no and take the cash, so I don't think that's a good deal for you.
I'm not really going to do that, so you can't hold me to it.
Very smart. Let's take a look take a listen to our next track. This is from a Swedish composer called Eternell with their song Inner Song. Another kind of blast from the past when we were working on Space Rock Mountain. this record label. It's a Greek record label called Sound and Silence, and they do they just release these small batches of these types of instrumental, kind of orchestral, ambient, or experimental CDs, and they always put out like 100 or 200, and they've been just constantly sending me stuff ever since those days. So they sent me another email. I thought, oh, great, I'll plop one of these into our new episode here. This is a very long song, and you're just hearing, a very small snippet of it. I think it's like 20 minutes. So obviously this is an experience that you're supposed to put on at the very beginning, listen through that 20 minutes. And much like the song we started the show with, this is music that is not your 3-minute pop jam where you're just going to quickly get into it and then jump out again. This is kind of something you're supposed to sit through and have a purpose in mind for this music to complement. What do you think, Craig?
Yeah, I mean, like you were saying, it's a good ambient soundscape. It's got a little new age twang or flair, I guess. Since twang and new age doesn't really go together. Like you said, it's like 20 minutes long, but I don't know if this makes sense, but it's a fast 20 minutes, even if there's no beat to drive it anywhere. And I think that's what helps it be able to last that long. Mm-hmm. And to me, it just kind of sounds like if you're out in deep space, and you're just hearing the universe breathe, which is a very hippie new age thing to say. That
is true, but I think that actually made me think of something here. This is going to be a dumb question. I'm full of those today and in general. But is kind of new age music, is it cool now? Because there was a time, of course, it was very uncool. And in fact, I would say like the 90s where we grew up, it was... I don't know. It just seemed like this is clearly, the old people music, people who are baby boomers who are now, past their prime and they're getting into crystals and all kinds of nonsense like that. They were the ones listening to that kind of stuff. But it seems like it's now become kind of a point of interest for many musicians.
Yeah. I mean, there's no longer the stigma associated with like Yanni or John Tesh or, that type of new age music. I think there's always been this type of song. Like, I mean,
sure,
Enya was new age-ish, and I think
she was
people
not
like
cool.
Enya.
I mean, it wasn't like any young person was like, man, I'm going to totally get into Enya and I'm going to try to make music like that.
Right, but if it was out in... it was out in the public, and people weren't. Well, I guess people were making fun of Enya on some level
all the time. It was like constant, at least my friends. But again, it was because your parents listened to it.
Yeah, a little bit. But I think that's again, if like you said, your parents listen to it now. What's old is good again on some level. But yeah, I know there's some like pop bands that kind of take these new agey elements to it. I think a lot of times new age can just be used as a placeholder for having some sort of Eastern influence.
Or just like any kind of ambience is now new age.
Yeah, there's that too.
I mean, do you think any of the kind of philosophical or religious ideas from new age are making a comeback? Or are they? I mean, I don't really know much about the kind of new age kind of religious movement at all.
Oh, like the spirituality of it?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of big up here because I live in the Bay Area and I live in more the rural Bay Area where a lot of people kind of go off and have little communes up here. So you see like shops that sell stuff that I guess could be tagged new age, and I always see advertisements for retreats and things. So I don't know are those ideas kind of becoming more popular with young people, or are they just interested in the soundscapes?
I don't know. I would imagine that there's this sense of spirituality that the younger generation gloms onto, even if like the idea of organized religion is kind of falling by the wayside. I think there's still that want or need to be part of either something or, associated with the universe. You just don't sit on a rock spinning in space feeling like you're all alone surrounded by 7 billion people. So I think there is something to have that connection. So I would assume there's probably some things involved. And then like if you look at like shitposting memes, like there's definitely some avant spirituality to
to shitposting.
Oh yeah, like yeah.
Really? How? I don't understand that. I always find like shitposting is just people with too much time and access to the internet.
Well, no, like if you look at like Simpsons shitposts where they kind of mash up, Simpsons scenes that never existed and kind of create new things. I think like on some level there's a, I don't know. I think there's something behind it. There's more to nihilism behind than, shitposting, which I think there's this idea that, they're just being stupid and doing nothing. They don't care about anything. But I don't know. I think there's a definite art to a good shitpost.
Okay, I guess I'll have to look into the philosophical points behind shitposting. I always thought shitposting was just something that, people who are trying to bring like Hitler memes or whatever, just constantly throwing at you at Twitter. And,
oh no, that's something different.
Oh, okay.
Like there's shitposting where you just like, to me it's kind of like the millennial idea of comedy where there's no setup to the joke. It's just like a weird thing that happens. Like there's just bizarre. They're like anti-jokes. To me, is shitposting. Not pretending you're a white supremacist until you become a white supremacist and start going into that, falling down that rabbit hole. Like, I guess
the funniest joke possible.
Yeah, exactly. But no, like to me, it's kind of like the anti-comedy stuff is shitposting, where like. You look at something, it's not funny, you see it 1,000 times, and suddenly it's the funniest thing in the world, and you can't explain why.
Awesome. Well, this is a good song nonetheless. Let's go to listen to our next track. This is one by a band called Double Poney, and it's a track called Wahwashi Geri. I think you found this one as well, so tell us about it.
I did find this one. This is another French band. I guess the songs that we chose for the next couple of episodes, I just happened to like double up on countries all over the place. Like to me, it's like a less technical Don Caballero. That aggressive post-hardcore math rock, like spine to it. I think it might benefit from vocals. It's one of those songs that sometimes needs it, to me. And I like the little segments that the song goes through, again, going back to like that theatrical idea of like, packing in a lot of different movements in one song to kind of keep it fresh. I liked how the drumming kind of helped go from one section to the other. And then at the end, when it just kind of all fell apart and like this, it awoke into a stoner rock song that came out of nowhere. I just really liked, and I the more I listened to it, the more I enjoyed it.
Yeah, my music criticism language in my notes is not top notch. Where I just thought, well, it's a 2-piece. I put better version of Black Keys because I also like just the fact that there's lots of little movements in the song. I even put in here, wow, at the very end here, this is like a sludgy jam. It just gets slow and just like this thick, dense bass line. I also just love any band that is basically a drummer and a bass player. I just find that is such a... that just must blow people's mind when they go see an act and there's no guitar, there's no vocals, it's just thick bass and drums. That's all you're going to get, asshole.
Yeah, because at times there's like a little bit of like a funk line that the bass player puts down, and you're like, what the hell is going on? And it's kind of fun. And like this is the type of band that I would love to see live, because I bet they just fucking at it. Kind of like, how Hella would be.
Right.
I just imagine these are just like a drum and bass version of Hella as well.
And we didn't do it justice here because we only play, about 30 seconds of a track, but you really got to hear the whole thing because there's a lot of different parts and it goes in different directions throughout this track. So you probably only heard, a little bit.
Yeah, I would definitely check it out. You could go to the webpage to get a link to the track. And what's that webpage, Ryan?
You can go to, actually, what is our webpage?
I think it's vizaural.music.blog.
Yeah, I think so. If you just search Vizaural Music on Google, it should be one of the first things that pops up. So.
Wow, we're so professional getting in getting in the plugs, like, 25 minutes into the episode, not
right.
knowing the website. Good thing we don't have a Patreon.
I know. Well, you just have to, before we get into Patreon territory, we have to actually get people to listen to this. So we'll work on that.
There's that. That's
Let's get into our. I
was gonna make this stupid Simpsons joke with the sugar line. Speaking of shit posting, but I'm not gonna do it.
Well, what's the joke? Now I want to know.
Oh no! Like in America, first you get the sugar, but it'd be first you get the listeners, then you get the Patreon account, then
that was
you
shit posting.
Then you get the women. That would basically be like a shit post.
I see.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
Yeah, but it would be funny.
I see. Let's get to our next song. This is from an act called Cell 10 with a track called Apamea. I'm not sure who found this one. I'm inclined to think that I found it, or maybe because you mentioned you had doubled up some countries here. This is another Scottish act, so maybe this is one that you found, Greg.
It is.
Okay, tell us about it.
Yeah, I don't know. I loved everything about this song. It sounds like 10 different bands shuffled together that I can't place, and I think every time I listen to their songs, like it's 10 different bands. Like, I don't know, if they're industrial, are they shoegaze, are they noise pop? And I know all of the, like, if you took a Venn diagram of those three things, there's a pretty huge overlap. I just really liked it. I love that it had, like, a timeless feel to it. Like, it could have been made at any time in the last 20 years.
Yeah, I would say
even
that's
though
fair.
I would probably say it's rooted most in, like, the mid-2000s. But, yeah, I thought it was great, and yeah, it's just another nice little like avant pop, like noise pop type of thing that got me going.
I liked it too, and this podcast really could just be called Kids These Days, but man, kids these days do have such an incredible, just the wealth of being able to hear the entire history of music and be able to like just synthesize that, take the parts you want and throw away the stuff you don't and make something new. I mean, I feel like anytime I hear old people or anyone, even sometimes music critics say, oh, well, music's not as good these days for reason X, Y, or Z. I'm thinking, no, you listen to something like this where clearly this person just heard a bunch of different types of music and pushed it together and made something cool with it. I just find that great, and I'm happy to be alive at this one moment where all of these things can kind of coexist at one time, and you can get a track like this.
So what you're saying is this is the musical equivalent of shitposting.
Is it? I still don't quite know what shitposting is, because that last joke you gave was not great, but I find this song to be quite good.
No, it's because, like I said, it takes a lot of things, like a lot of disparate things, and puts them together in a way that shouldn't work but does on some level. Like I said, like I can't believe you don't understand, or that you've never gone to like a Simpsons shitposting.
I mean, I see people share memes or share pictures, but I didn't realize it was. I just thought it was like, hey, here's this scene from The Simpsons, or here's something I just Photoshop. I didn't realize there was a bigger idea behind it.
Yeah, like I said, like they'll take a Simpsons scene or put two disparate Simpsons scenes together, and that have never happened in a way that doesn't necessarily make sense, but is good and funny. Like
Is it just like a remix culture? I mean, is it just that idea?
Yeah, I guess shitposting versus remix culture it'd probably be better just to say a remix culture where, yeah, you just pick and choose what you like. Because you have so many options and you just shuffle it together the way you want it. Yeah, that's probably a better, more elegant and eloquent thing, way to say it than shitposting music.
I also find that when I'm, again, watching my students, and it's interesting because they're 14 and they're just kind of discovering what interests them in music and starting to explore things. And one, they have access to everything, which is both good and bad. And that, once you have access to everything, it kind of becomes overwhelming, and maybe you just don't dig very deep, even though you could. But I find that a lot of them listen to SoundCloud, and they listen to remixes, and that's really interesting to me. I don't know if it's just because, SoundCloud is free, and they're not going to have the original song, but people post, their remixes of the track, and thus it's just available, and that's why they're listening to it. Or if there really is just more of an interest in, I'd rather hear someone else's take on this track. They might not even be familiar with the original.
Yeah, well, I'm not around teenagers, so I don't know about that. But yeah, that's one thing that I've never really gotten into is the SoundCloud culture of music. Like, all the SoundCloud rappers, like, I have no idea what they sound like. I get mildly disturbed when I find out what they look like.
Why is that?
I don't know, because they look like what? Let's take Post Malone. I don't even know if he was a SoundCloud artist initially, but when I first saw Post Malone, I just assumed that I would never have guessed that, he is a rapper. And then I listened to his music, and they're like, wait, they call him a rapper? It's just really weird. I don't understand. Like, I don't understand modern rap, which makes me sound really old.
You are the oldest man on this podcast by saying that. I mean, not that I understand it either, but I don't understand most things. I think the whole point of this podcast is for us to try to understand what the kids are doing these days.
I know, and I think one of these days I'll go over to like the new like hip hop and rap section of a Bandcamp and see if there's anything that tickles my fancy. But yeah, it's just one of those things where there's people that you don't expect to be making music the way that and have kids like it. Like, it's just, I find it really weird to see what kids these days like, and I just don't know if it's an influence on, what the influence is on, because a lot of what they like seems to be very minimal, like music wise, like with beats, very simple beats, not a lot going on.
That is true.
And then like just even like the lyrics don't seem to be saying much, but obviously it's connecting with them in some sort of way. And obviously, like, I don't know, I can't really say much, because like growing up listening to grunge, like what the fuck were they saying? Like, oh well, whatever, never mind. Yeah, that's deep.
Yeah, and that was a terrible time for music. I mean, just monstrous. But somehow we got through it, and we found better music via it. So maybe it's just for them. It's also just their introduction into stuff that they like and their parents don't like or don't understand, and that's the point. And from there, they'll get into something else. Or maybe we're just missing something.
Yeah, we're probably just missing something. But
probably.
Let's end this week's episode with what your favorite track was.
I'm going to have to go with Sloth and Turtle, just because I'm going to have a more direct connection with the band, and they're local, but man, 7 great songs this week.
I know. Yeah, it's a tough one for me. So I'm kind of between the 2 Scottish bands, I think. Which, I don't know.
So Scotland for the win.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna say it's a tie between Benjamin Blue and Cell 10. I think long term I'd probably listen to Cell 10 more, just because I think, like I said, like the density of Benjamin Blue might get to me after a while. So I'm just gonna go with Cell 10.
All right. Well done, Best in Shows. And again, this is Vizaural Music, and you can always email us at vizaralmusic@gmail.com. You go to our YouTube page. We got some new videos up, like our current 93 video from a couple weeks ago. And just shoot us an email, and especially if you have a band that you want us to share on our podcast and spread to the world. Any last thoughts, Greg?
I believe I'll finish. I don't know. I was going to say something about the kids these days and shitposting and big mood, but I couldn't put a joke together in time, so I will just wish you all adieu.
Yep, the best of shitposting. Ta-ta.